And welcome back. Another exciting episode of Water Guy Unfiltered. I am Paul, your water guy.
I am Ethan, your audio guy.
And he's now so much a part of the team that he now has official apparel.
I got t-shirts.
He's got a long sleeve because it's cold out here right now. Mm-hmm. And a nice short sleeve. He's got one of our technicians' shirts on, and they are wicked good looking. He's been working out. So we look like two working men here.
Twinning.
Oh my gosh, I was just thinking, because I was asked the question, what was our best episode?
What do you think our best episode was?
They're all a blur in my head. So
Yeah.
I didn't even want to I think I'm too partial to make decisions on that one. Mm-hmm. Are there any is there any one that stands out in your head that you were just like, that's the one that's changing my life?
Oh, geez. Like you said, it's all such a blur because there's so much information in every single episode. But as far as my favorite episode, so far I love the coffee one.
The coffee one.
I've been really loving the coffee one because it taught me so much about coffee and it got me into coffee again. Like I used to be one of those guys. It's like I don't do coffee. But now I'm like back in. I'm back in it now. Ready to indulge.
That's funny. So I'm asking people that have. It's hard to find people that have listened to every single episode, and you definitely listened to every episode because you're there. Mm-hmm. Except for maybe one. There was one way back at the beginning.
Yeah, where somebody at the
somebody had to fill in.
And
it's kind of funny because looking back, I found some of the files, and it said episode 1, and it had the date. August 23rd.
Oh, my gosh.
Or August, well, I don't remember the day, but it was August of 2023.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Here we are, 2025, and we're still talking about water, and we've still got content.
Yep.
But, we've actually come a long way. We just got the latest stats, and it looks like actual downloads. We have 511 people that liked it so much that they actually downloaded the episode.
Nice.
Yeah. So 460 of those are in North America, 9 of them in Europe, 36 of them in Asia, 1 in South America, and 5 in Oceania. Oceania. Where the heck is Oceania? Oh, well.
Well,
I guess those total up to 511, but
someone's doing the math.
10, 470, 506. Yep, that's 511. They're not cheating us. But yeah, that's pretty cool. We crossed that 500 download mark, which...
Gotcha. Oh, that's like Australia, New Zealand-ish.
Oh!
Yeah.
Well, that's good. It's we got some cool... I want to give some... Most of our activity... Thank goodness, is in the Virginia area.
Nice. That's good.
Yep, 17% of it is in Richmond, another 6% in areas like Norfolk and Stephen City, and then we've got Singapore.
Yeah.
Mixed in there with as many people listen in Singapore as were in Norfolk, Virginia. Just a very odd fact. Huh. And then it kind of breaks down from there, but yeah, these are all the tune-in folks. Yeah. I really, it makes me wonder, what are the foreign countries really, I wonder how they found it. I wonder if they're getting any benefit, or I wonder if these are like those folks that are like targeting it they're going to try to hack me. Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe that. I'm hoping that's not what this is all about.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Or it could be something as simple as some folks that just like to do everything through a VPN, and maybe their VPN bounces their location all over the place.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and where are most VPNs rerouted to? I mean, I'm assuming it's some random thing, but it seems like Singapore would probably be a place I would be bounced from.
Saskatchewan is an interesting one, too. Saskatchewan, Canada.
Oh, the Canadians.
Yeah.
Canucks. There's a lot in Virginia. There's a lot in Maryland. And then mixed in with that, for good measure, Sydney, South Wales. And 4 people in LA. That's when you know you're making it.
Am I seeing 6 people in Germany?
You are seeing
Frankfurt am
Frankfurt am Main in Hesse. I'm assuming that's Germany.
Yeah, it's German, so
Yeah.
that would make sense. Wow.
6 people. It's probably a VPN thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's actually kind of neat when you see some of the stats and then
You see like the breakdown of everything.
Yeah, names of cities that I've never heard of. Thief River Falls, Minnesota.
Huh.
If you're listening, thank you. If you're just VPNing through Thief River Falls, we're glad you're still listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Fargo, North Dakota. Everybody knows. That's probably the only city in North Dakota that everybody knows.
Fargo?
Yep, because of the movie.
That's true.
Yes.
Wow.
And Västra Götaland County in Gothenburg. We got somebody out there.
Oh, wow. It's got umlauts and everything. That's crazy.
Yeah, I don't even know if I pronounced that right. I'm
Västra-
a water guy, not a linguist.
Västra Götaland.
I am
Interesting.
I say I'm not a linguist, but now I am a cunning linguist.
Hey, there you go. Yeah.
Stole that line, yes, from Austin Powers, but it's so good. So I mentioned that on the last one, right? That I got a professional gig for a voiceover.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a interesting little thing, but awesome. So we've crossed that 500 download mark.
Wow.
And it's kind of funny because we're gonna go back to the beginning, back to the basics today.
I like it.
Yeah, there's kind of there's a reason for it. So I'll tell the story first, and then we'll kind of jump into the how. So we have a lot of customers, and we got a call from one of them, and he wasn't overjoyed.
Okay.
And he just got a softener. And it was not one of the good high efficiency non-electric Kinetico models. It was one of the basic, still professional, but a power line, which is it's a single tank. It's an electric controlled head. The same type of stuff that all the competitors would offer.
Right.
But this particular customer was they were a couple up in their years. Didn't really want to spend any extra on efficiency and things like that. They just wanted a softener. So, and that's fine. As long as we can help everybody to better their water.
Of course.
But they didn't get a drinking water system. They didn't think they just wanted the bare bones. I guess that's where I'm going with all this.
Right.
So then they end up calling us up and they said, "Hey, our water is poisoned." Yeah, I was like, "What?" I heard about this after it had already started with the phone calls, and they were like, "You're poisoning our water. There's something wrong with the softener. You need to come check it out." And we're like, "What do you mean? And we're poisoning your water? What's in your water? What would make you say something like that?"
Right.
And they said, "There's sodium in our water." And the sodium level was, I think it was 57 parts per million.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a very milligrams per liter, which is parts per million.
Right.
And that's a very, very tiny amount.
Right.
We'll kind of get into that a little bit later there, but basically that is normal. It's absolutely normal because they have a water softener because they had hard water.
Right.
And so that is the background for this story, because it made me realize, you know what? I just need to go back to the basics, because a lot of folks don't really understand how a softener works. And part of what I wanted to do was to use this podcast so that we can put this on our library and we can actually send this to everybody, so that they can listen. And so I'm not going to be all profane or anything crazy like that on this one. This is be the G-rated, unfiltered guy. But yeah, we want to have an episode that they can kind of listen to, and at a slower pace, we'll kind of run through how everything works.
Yeah.
So to understand how a softener works, you first have to really understand, why do you need a softener? And it's pretty obvious in most cases. You need a softener because you have hard water.
Mm-hmm.
But what is hard water?
And what does it look like?
And what does it look exactly?
Yeah.
Hard water can be crystal clear, looks just like every other water. The problem is it starts to impact things that when it dries on surfaces, it leaves whitish residue, scale deposits.
Mm-hmm.
Leaves a bunch of deposits on anything that heats the water. So water heaters, whether you have a tankless water heater or whether you've got a tank style, there is some way of basically heating the water inside there very quickly. So it kind of like boils the water right there at the surface of what's called the heat exchanger. And what ends up happening is you get these deposits that they precipitate. They kind of stick to the heater.
Right.
So if you have a tank style water heater, that's why you're supposed to drain those things every single year if you don't have something in place to help protect you from hard water. And if you have a tankless water heater, that's like catastrophic, because a tankless water heater is kind of like the radiator on your car. Once that thing gets plugged up, you got big problems. And the whole magic behind them is it takes water that comes in at 60 degrees, and it turns it into 120 degree water by the time it makes it out the other end. So if it can't really put a whole bunch of energy in that water really quick, it's not going to work. And if it starts to build up the skin of hard water deposits, then it's not going to work.
Right.
It just doesn't have a good transfer, and you waste energy, and then you start having breakdowns, and then you really find out the bad news that if you have a tankless water heater, look at your warranty, because on the warranties, everybody's like, oh, it's not working. It's only a year old, and then they look at the warranty sheet, and it specifically says this warranty is void if the issue is caused by water quality. Tragic, yeah. You don't want to find out about that afterwards. So
always read the warranties.
Always read the warranty. So no matter what, if you have everybody's got a water heater. I haven't met a house yet that doesn't. So if you have a tank style water heater, you need to flush that thing annually. You need to check your anode rod if it is one that has one, and replace that, because it does disintegrate and go away, and can cause problems if it kind of falls off inside your tank before you get a chance to pull it and put a fresh one in there. But if you've got a tankless water heater, you need to have an annual or more often descaling done, we do that actually.
Oh, nice. How convenient.
Yeah, it was one of those things we got into it by necessity, but they have these special ports on them, and we have special chemicals in this solution that it's not rocket science. We hook up this stuff and basically circulate it through your water heater for like 40 minutes, I think it is. And it softens up and breaks this stuff down, and then we flush that water out of there and we're done. But it kind of takes that skin of junk off of the heat exchanger so that your unit does what it's supposed to do the way it used to.
You really are a one-stop shop.
We are.
That's awesome.
We've tried to get into everything. Well, yeah, we've gotten into things because we had to get into things, but sometimes we just got into things because nobody can do it right. And it's one of those things that just kind of like duck cleaning, Mm-hmm. And we were just so irritated that nobody would do it the way it was supposed to be done that we got into duck cleaning.
Nice.
It's not our core business. It's kind of like more of a backup thing, and it's interesting. People find out about that just because they see it on our service trucks, and that's where almost all of our customers come from, actually, because they get it. They know these are the folks that you want in your house. They're not going to come in there with that weed eater thing and beat your ducks all to pieces and be gone in 28 minutes like the Facebook dudes, which is a whole separate episode. but anyway, back to the water. So the water heaters, they definitely get the brunt of hard water. And you can't see hard water, but you can see what it does to you.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that, I grew up on a farm. We had ridiculously hard water, and maybe I was just sheltered and ignorant, but I had no idea that water softening was a thing until, I was exposed to it down here. And actually, I briefly got exposed to it up in the Milwaukee area. And then I realized, there's an industry around this, that it's such a big problem. And then down here, of course, this has been the career for the last 10 years for me. So I learned tremendously. I learned something every single day here.
Yep.
But so anyway, it can impact your skin in ways that you don't really realize. A lot of people, they complain about dry skin. And in the wintertime, we've got dry air. You've got a lot of furnace action going on. So your body is being dehydrated constantly in your own home.
Right.
But if you're pretty much, if you notice that your skin is sometimes dry or you need lotion in the summertime, that you do not need, you're not getting dehydrated in the summertime.
Right.
If that's happening to you, you've either got hard water or you've got hard water mixed with chlorine. Because chlorine, if you've ever jumped out of a pool after you've been in it for a long time, your skin is all dry and itchy.
It's like tight.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I was in my spa the other night, and because I was just in pain. It was like 4 days in a row of being at the gym. I figured, and I know I keep sidebarring everything. I got home and I was sore, and it was like a whole body sore, and the spa's 101, and this was that night. I think it was already down to like 21 outside, and there is nothing better than, it's freezing when you're going out to the tub because you get your suit on and your towel, and you get in there, and it's wonderful when you're done because your body has been, at least mine, maybe I'm weird, but when I get done with that 20 minutes of being in there, you can get out. You're not in a rush to get inside. It's almost like you've been cooked. So your body temperature is up. It actually feels good to be out in the cold air. You take those nice crisp breaths, and then you're back. But I paid the price for that because I have even a bromine system like we talked about on P is for Pools episode. I've got that in there. Even that dried the heck out of my skin. I'm still it took like probably 2 days before I recovered from that one. But anyway, yeah, chlorine will suck the moisture right out of your skin and give you all dry skin too, but usually it's hard water. So hard water, it impacts the ability. You have oil glands all over. Your skin is your largest organ. I've actually heard that, what was that commercial? The one that talks about is it Irish Spring? No, the skin is the largest organ in the body, except his largest organ is his heart. I can't think of the. I know, it makes no sense. But anyway, I can't remember. It was some like Irish Spring or some body thing. But yeah, your skin is your largest organ, and it's just littered with oil glands. So those oil glands, their sole job is to go ahead and keep your skin hydrated, so that you're basically a big sheet of leather. So if you can't keep yourself conditioned, you're going to have problems. So the soaps and the hard water, the soaps fight with the hard water before it even gets to your skin, and the hard water, the minerals, the calcium that's in the hard water actually plugs up the oil glands. So when you get out, even though you feel squeaky clean, you're actually you're plugged up. So that's why you have dry skin after taking a shower or a bath in hard water. So when you have soft water, it's hard to explain until you have that experience. Once you have it, you're like, oh, this is very nice. It's luxurious. We like to say it's a silky feeling. So the silky feeling is what happens when the calcium has been removed from the water and been replaced by sodium ions. Not salt, but sodium ions. And this is super, super important. So a water softener, every water softener that's out there uses salt to clean itself. And that's just how the nature of the beast works. It's called ion exchange. It pulls something out of your water in exchange for something else. So it pulls the calcium out and it puts sodium back in its place. And there's actually there's a formula for this. So water is measured in grains per gallon, and each grain per gallon, when you soften that water, it pulls the calcium out, but it puts back in 7.866 milligrams of sodium in every liter of water. So not quite 8 milligrams. That's not a whole bunch. But, if you've got water that's 10, let's just say a ridiculously hard number around here would be about 10 grains. So that would be 78, right? You'd have about 78 milligrams of sodium for every liter of water. And that's how it works. It doesn't just pull out all the contaminants, it swaps them for something else.
Right.
Now, is there anything wrong with sodium? Absolutely not. I can sit here and lick a salt block all day long. It's not going to bother me.
It's a great element.
It's a great element. Yeah, it's the basic.
It's one of my favorites.
Salt. Yeah, you can't have salt without you can have salt without sodium, but it's not the same. It just doesn't taste the same. Sodium salt for some reason just tastes different than the other ones. Yeah. And yes, I have actually gone out. We have potassium salt here, and I've actually licked the potassium salt to tell, and it's a different flavor.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Potassium does taste different. I know it's a little odd to admit, because I was curious. I was like, do all salts taste like salt? No, they don't. They're all a little. They seem to be all a little different, and that's just using my tongue. So, if you understand that all water softeners that aren't scams actually they remove the sodium they remove the hardness from the water. They put sodium in its place. It drives me absolutely crazy when you see these guys out there offering saltless water softening. I'm just going to tell you right now, if you're considering buying a saltless water softener, call me up. We have a $100 service call over here, and I guarantee you it'll be free if I don't go out there and test your water after you spend all this money on this saltless water softener, and I show you that your water is just as hard in the house as it was before.
Yep.
It's in my opinion, it's very fraudulent because you can't call it a water softener if it doesn't soften the water.
Right, of course.
It may condition the water, it may do some other things, but it is not a water softener.
Right.
And I think that's where some people get confused and misled because they think, oh, well, not all water softeners actually use salt or put sodium back into the water. But they do. The real ones do. So do you think I beat that dead horse about how the softening works? It pulls it out. So I guess I could get animated. Whenever I'm in front of a customer, I try to it's hard to do this on a podcast, but basically I say, look, a water softener inside the tank has these little teeny beads of resin, which is basically these little tiny plastic balls.
Right.
And they've got a permanently built-in negative charge. They're going to hang on to this thing. And so I'm one of these little resin beads, and I've got these negative, hungry hands. And Ethan's going to attest, yes, I'm doing the animation.
He's moving his hands.
Moving the hands, yep. So I'm sitting there with my hands, and when I'm first made, they give me a bath in salt, in a sodium chloride, which is salt, dissolved into water, so that the sodium is floating around and the chloride is floating around. Well, the chloride it just goes down the drain.
Right.
We don't use that, but sodium is a positive charge. So basically, all of my hungry negative hands are now grabbing as much sodium as I can possibly hang on to. So this is important because I've only got so many hands, but I'm going to hang on to as much as I can.
Right.
So if you can imagine, a softener is full of me and all my buddies, and we're all holding sodium and we're really ready to do our jobs. And then we're turned into a softener. We get shipped over and we get installed in Mr. Smith's house, for example. And now all of a sudden, Mr. Smith's water comes in from his well or his municipal water supply, wherever it is, and he's got hard water. That means he's got calcium carbonate floating around in his water. Those are also positive ions. Mm-hmm. And they are a little more attractive. I want that stuff more than I want to keep hanging on to my sodium. Mm-hmm. So what ends up happening on my little happy hands full of sodium, I go, ooh, there's some calcium carbonate. Let me drop this sodium so I can grab the calcium carbonate. And then my other hands, they see some calcium carbonate. They drop their sodium and they grab it. And that's ion exchange. It's a really animated version of how that works.
It's like being in those money wind tunnels where you catch as much as you can, and first they're flowing through a bunch of dollar bills.
Yeah, but your hands are full, so you got to let go of whatever you got.
And then they start flowing $100 bills through. And you drop all the hundreds, and you drop all the ones and grab as many hundreds as you can.
You want something more.
Yep.
So
got some analogies up in here.
You got all. I didn't even know about that one, but I want to go on that show. So we've got, imagine all of my hands, over time, over a certain number of gallons and how bad the water is, all my hands are going to lose all their sodium. And now the sodium is in Mr. Smith's water. But now he doesn't have any more calcium carbonate, which is hardness.
Right.
So that's my job, and that I've done the job well. Well, eventually all my hands are full, and all my buddies are full, and we're what's called exhausted. And what ends up happening is we have to be regenerated. And I like to compare that to, it's like the magnet being dipped in the paperclip box. You're completely full, you just can't hold anymore. But doesn't mean that you get thrown away. Right. We just need to clean those paperclips off. And then you're ready to go back to work. And what ends up happening, every water softener, every real water softener has a salt drum. A brine drum is what we call them. And what ends up happening is there's water mixed with salt. This water forms a brine solution. No different than what you would use when you're brining a turkey or something like that.
Right.
And this brine solution is just literally, it is concentrated salt water. It'll dissolve the salt until it won't dissolve it anymore. It's kind of like if you take a glass. Now, I'm going to use so both of us are drinking out of clear glass because we're not drinking out of plastic because we care about ourselves. And so we're actually drinking purified water that has gone through the soda stream, and we have a little flavor added into it. And then we use ice that is now UV sterilized after the debacle of Richmond last week. So we're drinking super wonderful stuff to keep ourselves hydrated and jacked up here. But if you can imagine that this glass, we just have regular pure water in it, and we're going to keep putting sugar in there and stirring it. And I'm sure everybody's done this. Let's say, for example, you're at a restaurant and you don't like sweet tea, but you don't really like unsweet tea either. You want something, you want unsweet, but you want enough sweetness in there to take the bitterness out of it. So you put some sugar into your iced tea, and you hit it with your spoon, you stir it all around. It takes forever because it's cold usually. But eventually all that sugar disappears. But if you were to keep adding more and more packets, eventually you're not going to get it to dissolve anymore.
Right.
You're going to have sugar crystals sitting on the bottom of your glass. And then you would be at like maximum saturation. And then at that point, you basically got sweet tea. Because it's kind of how they do it.
Yeah.
I've seen some local restaurants. Oh my gosh. I'll never drink sweet tea again. I'm not even going to mention the names of them. Because everybody has a recipe, right? And even, let's just say that even the ones that are franchises that are supposed to be following a very strict recipe, And it's like so many gallons of water and so many packs of the tea. I think it's actually all like a pre-done pouch.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so the tea part that's not rocket science.
Right.
But I'll see them and they'll have these 5-pound bags there's just crap tons of these 5-pound bags of salt on this shelf. And each one of the batches, I want to say it's like 5 gallons of tea, gets a 5-pound bag of sugar poured into it. It's kind of crazy, but it's not bad. But have you ever been to one of those places and the sweet tea is just really, really friggin' sweet?
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, you're like, oh man, that's over the top. I know why now. Because sometimes the people that are working there, they're like, well, if 1 bag is good, 2 bags are better.
Oh,
I literally saw this one. They put 3 bags, like 15 pounds of sugar.
oh no.
5 pounds. So that is a crazy example. And I don't even think that they hit maximum saturation because they got all that stuff to dissolve in there.
Yeah.
But when you're maximum saturated, that explains why you could look in your salt drum and you see water, but you also see crystals of salt.
Right.
And a lot of times, on these single tank units, they use a lot of water. You're used to opening these things up. If anybody's ever had one of those, you kind of know what I'm talking about. You open the lid and you go, oh, I see water in there. The Kinetico twin tank non-electrics, they're super high efficiency and it's a very, very prescribed dose. And it's such a small amount of salt water that gets used that it's literally so far down that you don't even see it until you're almost empty in the drum. So a lot of people are like, oh, I don't see water, there's a problem. And then we have to explain to them, yeah, this is a good unit. It doesn't overdose and use 3 times the amount of salt that it needs. But anyway, if you can imagine that the liquid that is in there is 100% saturated, then that is like soap for a water softener. So, soap for a water softener. I'm going to take a breath. I'm going to leave you cliffhanging because I'm going to explain what we do with the soap after this break.
Yes.
Because it's time. It's been 32 minutes already. That's insane.
We're trucking along.
We're going to take a breath, take a drink, listen to a word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back to tell you what that soap is used for. This is your future. We want you to be proactive. Protect us. Put something in place that you don't have to worry after there's a water emergency if you were protected. You don't want to find out after a water or health emergency that this is something that you could have prevented. Give a water professional a call, preferably us, Kinetico Advanced Water Systems, right here in Richmond, Virginia. But call somebody because everybody needs to be protected. Water is not getting better. That is a fact. All right, and we are back. I know everybody's sitting there just teeth clenched. What do we do with the salt water brine, the soap, so to speak?
What do we do with the softener soap?
Yeah, so it's basically concentrated sodium chloride that is dissolved into the water.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could imagine, going back to my little happy piece of resin with full hands. Now my hands are all dirty. I've got all this hard water all over them. And what ends up happening is the softener, the control valve on the softener, will take this salt water, the brine solution, and it will actually kind of slowly give the resin a bath. So if you could imagine, I'm sitting there holding all this crap, and this wave of concentrated sodium slowly goes over me. What ends up happening is I kind of relax and I let go of all those contaminants and I go back to holding the sodium. And what happens is those contaminants along with the chloride, and the chloride is not used at all. The the chloride ions are not added to the water. They merely pass through the resin bed during the regeneration cycle, and they are discharged with the regeneration waste as calcium chloride and magnesium chloride. Because I didn't lie, but I didn't tell you everything that could be in hard water, but it's basically calcium carbonate and some magnesium.
Mm-hmm.
So that explains a little bit of magnesium chloride there. So basically that stuff gets kicked out. It flushes all this stuff down the drain. Every softener has to have a drain. This is problematic if it's not done properly.
Right.
So all right. I wasn't going to go much into drain stuff, but I will after we get done beating this dead horse, because I want to make sure that everybody understands that the way the water softener works is it takes this stuff out, it puts sodium back in its place, and then it's taken offline, given a bath in brine, which knocks off and cleans the resin and puts it back so that all the hands are full of sodium again. And then it gets rinsed, and then it gets turned back into what we call service, which means it's softening the water in your house again, and this process repeats itself. So, some of the questions that people might be wondering is, well, how long does this resin last? Well, I can tell you that properly cared for resin will work for over 20 years. We've got plenty of systems, and I know this because we have plenty of systems that are over 20 years old that are still working great.
Wow.
So taken care of, it will last. Now, the reality is that every time this little plastic bead of resin gets loaded up and cleaned off, there's a little tiny amount of swelling of the bead that happens. So after it swells and contracts over and over and over and over and over and over, I like to tell people, look, if you've got 20 years out of your softener, you probably owe it to the softener to go ahead and replace the resin.
Right.
Because you will start to get a little bit of fracturing and stuff like that. Sometimes they'll break and you'll just start to literally lose resin. And you won't probably notice too terribly much because it usually happens when it's doing its cleaning cycle. But yeah, properly cared for softener should last you 20 years plus for a good one. Now, here's the challenge. I get a lot of people that say, oh, you're putting salt in my water. Like I said at the beginning of the show. We do not, and the softener does not put salt back into your water. But it does put sodium as part of the ion exchange process. It is an insignificant amount of sodium. So the customers that were all freaked out, and I'm going to call them out on this one, but apparently Virginia Tech got them all worked up. And I've had a run-in with Virginia Tech multiple times.
Oh.
Because there's some people over there, and I'm from NC State, so, there's a rivalry already. And there was a reason why we were always better. And now I know why. Some of the folks, I'm sure Virginia Tech is, 99% of them are fantastic like NC State. But the 1%ers are unfortunately the idiots that get out there in these areas where the public interacts with them, and they can spread misinformation. And that's what's happening out there. There is misinformation that we are contaminating their water. We're not contaminating it. It's how ion exchange works. It is an unavoidable side effect of it. Now, what we do control as water treatment professionals is the ultimate recommendation for a complete system. And I almost don't even want to say this because if there's competitors listening to this, I'm going to give them the answer to the secret here. The answer to the question, which is a big secret. I will not recommend that anybody get a water softener without also recommending that they get a reverse osmosis drinking water system. Now, the reality is, everybody should be drinking out of reverse osmosis anyway, regardless of if you have a softener or not. That's the only way to be sure. There's tens of thousands of contaminants in the water. Sodium is the least of your problems, but It is one of those things that a softener is not a drinking water system. It's just not. It is there for the house it's there for the water that your house drinks. See, I've said this so many times that the words just flip-flop occasionally, but it does the drinking water of your house. The house uses the water for cooking, cleaning, bathing, laundry, toilets, stuff like that.
Right.
The actual cooking water and drinking water should be taken to a step further than the water that you use to flush your toilets. It just makes sense.
Right.
So, in this particular example, this customer chose to not get a drinking water system. And we've all had those stories that, that haunt us. Like I had that one that I told you. I think I said this way back at the beginning. I had a customer that said, I should have made her buy one. And when I was shocked at that, I was thinking,
that.
Yeah, I was thinking, I should have made you buy a drinking water system. And I said, I remember I offered you the drinking water system. And she said, no, you should have made me buy it. And I kind of was freaked out. And she says, you know better. And that's kind of the whole mantra with why I do know better. And that's why we recommend it to everybody. And if somebody turns it down, we've got a cool system here that, at least in this particular case, I can look back and go, well, we actually did recommend the drinking water system.
Right.
On such and such date at such and such time. It was emailed over to you with everything else, and you opted to not go forward with that one for one reason or another. But at least I know that we did. It's not like we just, like all the competitors that I run into, I go into their house and they got a softener, right? And there's no drinking system. That just blows my mind that you wouldn't really deliver the complete package. It just tells, there's a difference between a water treatment professional and a plumber or a water treatment guy that's incentivized because he has to sell a bunch of softeners, because that's what the company really pushes.
Right.
So, okay, back off the soapbox of that. So sodium is an unavoidable part of the process of softening the water. Right. We're not poisoning the water. We're not putting extra stuff in there. So why did this particular customer get so worked up over sodium? Well, the whole Virginia Tech thing, that was messed up, because here's what Virginia Tech says. Let's kind of back up the train here. There's the EPA and then you got the FDA.
Right.
The EPA has a 250 milligram per liter unenforceable recommended limit. Basically, it means if it's over 250, just, you might want to reconsider. But it's not going to hurt you. Like I said, I can go out there and take one of those salt licks and lick on that thing all day long and I'll be fine. I'll just drink more water to compensate for it. But there are folks that have some extremely bad reactions. The American Heart Association basically says that if you have heart issues or blood pressure issues, they're recommending a total diet of 2,300 milligrams of sodium or less per day. 2,300. So let's say that particular customer there, they had their water tested and it was 57. I remember the number now. It was 57 milligrams in a liter of water. Now, a liter of water is a decent amount of water.
Yeah.
If you drink 2 liters of water a day, you're a pretty healthy person.
Yeah.
So let's just say that you drink 2 liters of water. That's, in their particular case, it'd be like about 115, right? Just to put this in perspective, you have to drink a poo load of water to get 115. 1 cup of milk, for example, 122. So 2 liters of water or 1 cup of milk, they're about the same.
Right.
2 slices of white bread, 228. About 114 per slice. So basically you can have 1 slice of bread and have the same amount of sodium as drinking 2 liters of water. after it's been softened, like in their particular case.
Am I seeing those numbers right? Wow.
Crazy. A dill pickle,
Yeah, 930.
yeah, 930. An ounce of cheddar cheese, 406. So this is where it's important to understand. And this is why, for those of you that are all still mad about me bashing Virginia Tech. So Virginia Tech told them that their drinking water should have no more than 20. Yes, I know. Number one, 20 is considered a very low sodium diet. So I get that's one of the things that, if you just read a book and you don't really understand the book, but you know how to repeat some of the data that's in the book, you're what we call book smart. They're really book smart because they're just regurgitating this 20. Well, if they were real world smart, they would have said, look, you got 57 in there. The EPA actually has a recommendation of between 30 and 60. If your only concern is taste, because when you get in, above 60, 70, you're probably you might be able to taste it. Super, super sensitive people might.
Right.
But even that being said, 250 is the unenforceable maximum. You can have as much sodium as your heart and your blood pressure can handle. So it frustrated the heck out of me that we ended up trying to explain how a softener works after this whole thing started. But yes, the end of the day is that for every grain, if you're listening to this and you're going, oh my gosh, I wonder how much sodium is in my water. If you know how hard your water is in grains, you can go ahead and take it times 7.866. If you are looking at a laboratory test like Virginia Tech does, they don't talk about grains. Now, there is they talk about parts per million or milligrams per liter is usually how you'll see it on an official water report. So every milligram per liter of calcium carbonate water hardness will equate to 0.46 milligrams per liter of sodium after it goes through a water softener. So it's a very, very tiny. It's a kind of a 50% less. It's a 46% if you're looking at it by parts conversion. But a grain is 17.1 milligrams per liter. That's like the conversion factor. So without getting all nerdy on conversion factors, just if you're thinking about your water in grains, take it times 7.866. If you're dealing with milligrams per liter, take that times 0.46. So here's a funny one. I said there's a difference between the EPA and the FDA. So if you have water that is over 1,200 milligrams per liter of total water hardness, it would still be classified after being softened as a low sodium beverage. That's 1,200 milligrams per liter.
That's a lot of sodium.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, you would think it's a lot of hardness, but it's still a low sodium. That's where I'm going with all this. We were not poisoning anybody. So I was actually offended that they would suggest that we're out there to try to harm people's health intentionally.
Right.
It wasn't poisoning. It was them not really understanding how this works. Now, we are, if you look at our reviews, we're flawless. Not to toot our own horn here, but we're flawless. Because we are 100% committed to making sure that we do the right thing and we make sure that everybody's happy. So, I even tried. I said, look, if you didn't really understand what you were getting and what the impacts could be, so they were really mad because of this 57 parts.
Right.
Which is insignificant. That's like a half of a slice of bread. So I said, you do realize that there's not a limit. That's just a recommendation if you have a sodium restrictive diet. Do either of you have a sodium restrictive diet? And they said, no, but we're old. So, I swear that was the answer. I didn't say anything, but I'm thinking to myself, that's not a good reply.
Right.
Lots of people that have plenty of years of experience under their belt can still go down there and guzzle sodium.
Right.
It doesn't impact, just because you're older doesn't mean that you have to stay away from sodium. But I told him, I said, look, I'm committed to trying to find a solution because I want you to be happy. We have two options at this point. We can either do what we recommended at the beginning and install a reverse osmosis system and protect you from your concerns of sodium, because reverse osmosis pulls that stuff out of the water, as well as all of the tens of thousands of other potential things that might be in the water that could actually cause you a heck of a lot more harm. But that costs money.
Right.
So that was shot down way back at the beginning, and it was, of course, shot down again now. I said, look, we have another option that we can do it, we can convert it, but our water softener, we can very easily switch it over from a sodium chloride. Everybody knows, well, not everybody. I'm assuming most people know that salt is, like table salt is sodium chloride.
Yeah, sodium chloride.
The salt that's in the ocean is sodium chloride. That's its primary makeup.
Right.
Which is funny because water softener salt almost entirely comes from the ocean. It's dehydrated seawater. I just got 19 pallets of it yesterday. And yes, that's exactly how they make it. They basically like let seawater in, it dries out, they scrape it up, turn it into water softener salt. That's how it works. So it's the most natural thing. We're not fabricating it or making it. We're just taking something that's already out there and turning it into water softener salt. But remember I said that the little hungry hands hold the sodium? There's a lot of different types of salts.
Right.
So there may be a few folks out there that are aware of this, but instead of using sodium chloride, we could convert you over to a potassium chloride. It's a salt. It works almost the same. I have to set things about 25% more dosing. And there's some other things with potassium salts. They like to bridge. And it's basically 5 times the price of a bag of sodium chloride.
Oh my God.
Because it's nowhere near as easy to come by potassium as it is to just dry out some seawater. So I said, look, let's go ahead and swap you out from your sodium salt over to a potassium salt. I'm not even going to charge anything for this other than the salt, because I am not going to go in there and put a $45 a bag salt in on something that was a $12 a bag salt.
Right.
So, and I'm doing all this. I was going to do this for free just to make them happy. So we end up going out there. That was the plan. He said, but I want somebody to check the softener because it's not working right. And I'm like, okay, we'll check out whatever you want.
Right.
It's working fine. We were just there, as a matter of fact. He's like, no, it's not working. It's poisoning my water. And I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go again. We're right back to the beginning. They just didn't understand anything that we were trying to tell them.
Right.
So I was like, look, I got some techs that are magical with being able to explain on site. And sometimes it's hard to explain over the phone.
Right.
So we sent another tech out there, and he was all loaded up. I mean, it was a terrible day. He was on his way, and my tech, I shouldn't even share this part, but he calls me up, and he's like, I'm on the side of the road. I'm like, are you kidding me? You got to go to we'll call him Mr. Smith. I'm like, you got to go to Mr. Smith's. He's like, yeah, but the van just stopped. And it's a Mercedes Sprinter van.
Oh, jeez.
Long story short, the engine blew. If anybody's ever heard of it, that's not a repair you ever want. Let's just say a blown engine in a diesel Mercedes is not what you ever want.
Been there, done that.
So we had to go get him, and then we had to figure out another alternate vehicle. And he still ends up going out there that afternoon to try to swap this out to make this customer happy, and ultimately, get him taken care of. He gets all the way out there, and this guy doesn't want him to change this stuff out. He won't let him.
Okay.
He's like, there's something wrong with the softener. So my tech had to go ahead and try to explain again, on site, everything. And what was creepy about this is my tech comes back and he's like, he was asking me questions, but he was asking me in a weird way. And he was almost holding his phone like he was trying to videotape the whole thing. So,
I mean,
but secretly.
right.
Not like, like just on the sly type thing. Not like, oh, I'm going to video. Like, if you know
Right,
you're
like
being videoed.
He was doing like one of these.
Yes, he was
Yeah,
like
like
half
holding it in his
turning
lap or
it. Like,
something
I'm
like
going to
that.
catch you saying something and I'm going to put it out there. Well, you can't catch it. If you don't do anything wrong, there's nothing to catch.
Right, of course.
So that's kind of how that ended up. But he comes back. I'm like, are you kidding me? I got a blown freaking engine. And we're still trying to get out there. And he doesn't even want to go ahead and do this. And he's sounds like he's trying to like entrap us into saying something on video that he thinks he's going to be able to use against us. But anyway, I can't help everybody.
Right, of course. Can't make everybody happy.
Can't make them all happy. But that was my my realization that I probably needed to go back to the basics to explain that every water softener operates this way.
Mm-hmm.
Your options are to either switch to potassium. And potassium, apparently, now obviously I don't have any heart or blood pressure issues that I know of. I guess I'll find out tomorrow morning. But anyway, so the potassium does not have the same negative effects as the sodium does. So your body doesn't mind the potassium, which it's weird, but it kind of makes sense. A lot of people ask us, hey, what do we do with the drain water? Remember, probably in the middle of the show, I said I wasn't going to talk about the drain.
Yeah.
So every softener, when it's in its process of doing we call the regeneration, it has to basically keep water running and rinsing things and moving water through there while it's doing a cleaning. Well, the water has to go somewhere, and you darn sure don't want, funk water in your house.
Right.
So it goes down the drain. And when it goes down the drain, that drain can either be connected to your septic or your sewer system, which did we cover septics? You remember?
Oh, geez, I don't think so.
I was you know what? We had that penciled in. I had a septic guy. He's hard to pin down. But he's actually a big time septic guy around here. And a lot of people are like, oh no, you can't put a softener in a septic. Well, yes, you can. You actually can. It depends on a lot of factors. So that's like a whole episode in itself. But yes, you can put a softener in the septic. You can put a softener in the sewer. That's the best way to put it. And you can go ahead and have your softener drain to the exterior. Basically outside. Yeah. That becomes a problem right now when we're dealing with all sorts of people that decided that they wanted to drain to the outside. And the outside where it comes out, it freezes. Then the unit can't clean itself and all hell breaks loose.
Yeah.
So I am not a big fan of draining to the exterior. That being said, that water that does come out in the high efficient units, they use about a third of the amount of salt as a regular electric water softener. And so if you can imagine a unit that's going to try to dose itself with 9 pounds of salt, as opposed to the exact same unit when it's run, the way we do things with the high efficiencies, it's only going to use 3 pounds of salt because it almost entirely uses that salt. There's not like an extra 6 pounds of salt just going down the drain during the cleaning process, which is basically what happens on the other ones. So if you have a cheap system, I hate using cheap, but that's a basic system, and you try to run that thing outside your house, you're probably going to end up killing the grass, and you're going to kill stuff that it's going to drain on, because a lot of things just don't like effectively salt water being put on them. Whereas we have plenty of systems that are like the twin tank, non-electric, high efficiency ones that are vented or drained right to the exterior on very well manicured lawns. And it's kind of funny because this one guy, he's got a downhill driveway. And we didn't really have an option to be able to do his drain, so we just poked it through the wall. So his is actually to the exterior. So he has grass down the driveway, but then you get about the last third of the way down. Mm-hmm. That's the area of the grass that you kind of get this run off of the drain that goes over to. And he made it a point. I haven't seen this guy since 2015, and I know that because it was a debacle that happened on that particular job. He turned the wrong breaker on and burnt up the heating element on his water heater on Christmas Eve, on the night before Thanksgiving. Oh, when I was literally on my way out of town, and he was like, I don't have any hot water, so I had to delay my Thanksgiving plans because of that. So it was kind of funny. Fast forward to actually this year. So it was 9 years later. I run into this guy again because I like to be out in the field a lot. And he's showing me his grass. And he's like, oh, I got to show you the grass where it's draining. And I'm thinking, oh, no, this is never good. Mm-hmm. Because, if it's an electric unit, it's going to probably kill the grass. Well, he shows me this grass, and it looked like a friggin' golf course on the bottom third. And the rest of it looked all just nasty, barren spots. But that grass absolutely loved that soft water rinse. It was kind of funny.
That's funny.
It was quite the opposite of what people would expect.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you can drain it to the exterior. There's a lot of things to consider. Don't just go with a plumber. Plumbers are great at herding turds, but when you need you almost need a professional chemist to be able to come in and design something properly.
Right.
I think I kind of covered almost everything. I had an agenda, but honestly, I've been doing this for 10 years, so I didn't really follow my agenda.
Right.
There was a cool little chart that I did want to mention, some package for nutrient claims. So, a guide to common claims and what they mean. Salt/sodium free. If it says that actually means it has less than 5 milligrams of sodium per serving. Salt, sodium free. Then there's very low sodium. 35 milligrams of sodium or less per serving. Then there's low sodium. 140 milligrams of sodium or less per serving. So 140, if a serving size of this guy's water was a liter, which it's not, usually it's like a glass, right? But let's just say that a serving size is an entire liter. He is still a third of what the limit would be for something that would be labeled low sodium. Kind of crazy, isn't it? So you got low sodium, then you got reduced sodium. It's not low, it's not normal, it's reduced. And it's reduced 25% or more less than the regular product. So basically the regular product you're going to get like 75% of the sodium or less.
Gotcha.
And then you got light in sodium. I didn't realize there was this many categories.
Right.
No wonder people are confused. But light in sodium or lightly salted. That means at least 50% less sodium than the regular product. So at least 25% less, at least 50% less. So it's actually, the way I'm reading that, light in sodium has less sodium in it than reduced sodium.
Yeah, that's how I'm reading it too.
Very odd. So we can't even on their chart, it doesn't even make sense. And then you got no salt added. Well, that doesn't mean there's no salt in there. That just means that there's already whatever normal salts would be in there.
Right. So it's like whatever salt was there during the production is all the salt that's there.
Yeah, whatever was in the actual ingredients. They didn't like throw in some more. That's all that says.
Right.
So, before we wrap it up, Did I say what? I got derailed on the whole talking about the green grass and all that.
Yeah.
And he's on sodium. But if you're using potassium, you're going to get an even better effect because those of you that have ever used fertilizers, you don't get fertilizers that have sodium in them. You get fertilizers that have potassium in them.
Uh-huh.
So there's a lot of plants out there that have like a tolerance level to sodium, but they really tend to like the potassium. It's more like fertilizing them,
Right.
rather than putting sodium on them. So I actually have the potassium at my own house because I have to water my yard every once in a while because I've got this really weird setup. And some of my hoses are unavoidably treated through my water softener.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to put water on my yard, at least it's going to be the best.
Right.
So it's soft, but it's softened with potassium.
Mm-hmm.
So
the grass and the plants like it.
love it. But you know what? I can't tell the difference between that and the raw, where I don't think the grass is that picky. But either way, I take the chlorine out of that water too.
Nice.
So hopefully this episode clears up some of how water softeners work. And I don't like using customers as examples, but I'm hoping we got a learning experience out of this that I can share. And if somebody else has similar concerns, that we can kind of head off the issues before they even happen.
Kind of ease those troubles.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just get a drinking water system and you don't have to worry.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. As everybody that just went through the Richmond roller coaster found out, if you've got reverse osmosis, doesn't matter. All your neighbors have to boil their water, but you don't.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this was a pretty solid one.
I would say so too.
Well, thank you for the help. Thanks for listening, everybody. Let's see how many downloads we change after this one goes out there live.
All right.
And we will catch you probably, I think you're gone for a couple of weeks. So
At least a week.
I can't do audio by myself, and it would be much different without Ethan. So it may be 2-3 weeks before our next one. But we will see you next time. Be safe.